Three, two, one. We are live. Hello and welcome to PropTechBuzz, where we talk to CEOs and founders from PropTech industry from all over the world and learn insights on building successful PropTech companies. Today, I'm thrilled to have with me Balaji Vardharajan. He is the founder and MD of HouseMonk, which is a property management software. Is how I would know, but I'm sure they are more than that. And we'll get to talk to Balaji, and we'll get to know about the journey of HouseMonk. So let's
I'm,
welcome Balaji. Welcome to PropTech Buzz. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right, Ravi. I hope you're doing fine as well.
I'm doing great as well, Balaji. I know you travel a lot. What part of the world are you in dialing in from?
I'm dialing in from Bangalore. This is where the larger part of the team sits. So for the HouseMonk, PropTech Labs, the Office Market, the entire ecosystem of property management products and community management products that we have. So
Otherwise, where else do you work from? If you have to
our
travel,
company is registered in Singapore.
got it.
75% of our customers come from outside of India. We primarily focus on the European belt, the Middle East and North Africa belt, and the Southeast Asia belt.
Nice, nice.
And this specific region is a blue ocean for our suite of products. So we primarily focus on these areas. And of course, India is hometown, so most of the customers recognize us and sort of sign up with us without
Excellent.
any.
That gives me a lot of meat to ask a lot of questions. Let's see how much we can cover. So Balaji was very kind. He's a busy man. He just came back to Bangalore after a hectic travel, but he still agreed for this interview. I'm indebted for his time. So I'll be as efficient as possible with my questions, and let's see how much ground we can cover. So Balaji, before we can get into the meatier stuff, maybe you could briefly go through your career trajectory. I know before HouseMonk you also built cozy homes, but maybe after your education, what are all the things that you have been doing till today?
So after I finished my engineering, of course, there was always the entrepreneurial bug that had been our, entire clan of friends, as I would call it. But what we realized was, at least in 2012, what we realized was that we needed to work for larger organizations to understand how processes are set when you scale. And most of my friends decided to work for multiple large organizations. And fortunately, we had the advantage of having a diverse portfolio of organizations that all of us work for, so that we could get insights into, say, manufacturing, services, technology, analytics, and various other things as well. We even have a bunch of friends who run large F&B chains. So what typically happened after college was that I chose the manufacturing space primarily because my family is into the construction and contracting field in the services space, and I wanted to have a complementary skill set, which was to hold manufacturing close to my heart at that point. And I started off with TVS Motor Company, and I was working with the TVS BMW team, and that went on for about 4 years. What really happened in that particular 4 years was my career trajectory was accelerated, at a light speed pace. This was primarily because a lot of my friends were in the analytics space, which was a growing field with respect to career paths at that point, and this wasn't something that we saw that was streamlined in TVS Motor Company at that point. And I just brought two and two together to sort of bring about analytics, IoT, and technology into the large manufacturing space, into legacy industries. At this particular point, what we realized was pick any legacy industry such as real estate, such as F&B, such as manufacturing, or even say entertainment in the movie industries and so on and so forth. You really saw a lack of implementation of technology across various facets. If you take manufacturing, they have great technology pieces that they've implemented within the R&D space. But with respect to manufacturing itself, between 2012 and 2016, 18, whether it's the manufacturing process or whether it's the dealer management system or whether it's customer management or even the sales and marketing process, everything was offline. Now, given that a lot, again, a lot of the people that I'm connected to, a lot of the people that I've worked with, a lot of people I grew up with, were in the technology, the growing technology and analytics space. Me and my current co-founder Ajay sort of decided to pick a certain industry where transaction values per customer are high and implement technology where there was a lack of technology. What we came up with was the idea of Uberizing long-term stays within the rental management space, right? If you think
Uberizing long-term sales
stays within the
stays. Got it. Okay.
rental management space, right? So hospitality to a certain extent had fixed processes in place.
Mhm.
You discover something through an OTA, you discover a hotel through an OTA, you book it through an OTA, you go there, and then there's a set process in place, and then and there's teams of people who train staff within hospitality to give you the best experience possible, which was not even close. I mean, the process set there was about 10x of the processes that were there in the long-term stay, primarily because there were so many stakeholders involved. Your discovery happens through a platform like, say, in India, Magic Rates No Broker, Dubai, Dovision or Property Finder, and in different countries, different portals that people use, right? And post that, you end up reaching a broker or an agent or a property manager, and then you end up paying, say, a month's rent to this particular person just to get your contracts done. Post that, you need to find someone to help you packing and moving all of your things from one property to another, and then you need to find out who's your domestic help, and you need to find out who's maintaining your automobiles, and so on and so forth. And then you have your plumbers, electricians, carpenters, you have your painters and cleaners, and then the entire mover process happens all over again, where we realize that at least in places like India and certain places in Southeast Asia with the same demographic and the same rental market, similar rental market, it was at least 3x of a month's rent that you end up spending through the life cycle just on enabling services for people. The idea was to bring about one platform that brought together owners, tenants, agents, and service providers, just like Uber did with cab owners, drivers, and riders at the end of the day, and bring about one platform where you could manage all of this and sort of bring down the cost for the same and give a standardized experience for anyone who's trying to find the property in the long-term space. We were very early to the market. We started off in the late 2014 era. This was pre-Geo in India, right? So Geo sort of changed and acclimatized people to use smartphones and the internet a lot more frequently than they were in the past. And what happened with Cozy Homes was, one, we realized that we had to build out this entire ecosystem for ourselves because there were 8 products that we used instead of one product just to manage one property, right? So we use something for accounting, we use something for contract management, we use something for ticketing, we use something for broker aggregation, we use something for communication, and so on and so forth. So we ended up building out the entire platform ourselves, and
So
we ended up building out the
who was the target audience for you in this ecosystem? Because there are so many players in this ecosystem. This platform was meant for what kind of a customer?
our primary customers. So if you take developing countries as such, right, or any other geography at the end of the day, a tenant will automatically come to properties that are in key locations. So we always consider the owner to be our primary customer, the tenant to be our secondary customer, and property managers and service providers to be enablers of our business.
Got it.
So that, I mean, given that we were very early to the market, we were both highly focused on profitability, and it was a bootstrap company, right? So we grew at a steady pace. We really didn't have any issues. And at this moment, companies like Oyo and Nestaway raised about $100 million each, and we basically had about $500,000 in the bank, which we had accrued over time. And just to give you some numbers around this, I think we were actually higher in terms of the number of properties managed by some of these very large players. And what happened was the entire property management industry changed, where property management companies such as these large companies started underwriting rent to owners, which is not something that we ever did. We always used to go with the revenue share model. Even at the end of the cycle of Coziums, by end of the cycle, I would say just before we sold the company to another services company, we had 92% of our properties under the revenue share model, where we collect rent and only if the property is occupied, we end up paying rent to the owner. Whereas all the other players to scale up quickly, and I understand the reason behind why they did that. To scale up quickly, started underwriting rent, and then started making a margin on how much they sell it for. The furniture costs were mostly on
Uh,
these property management company, and all of this required large capital.
by the way, could you explain what does underwriting mean?
Underwriting typically is the lease and sublease model.
Ah,
So a property management company such as OA or Nestaway would rent a property, so say for $1,000 a month from the owner,
right,
furnish it with 6 beds, and give out each of these beds for say $200 a bed,
right,
and the margin of $200 overall, $1,200 versus $1,000 is what they make.
got
Right
it,
now, the problem with this model is that you need to calculate the depreciation for the furniture assets that you've put in. You need
got
to
it,
calculate cost of capital because you've raised large sums of money, and also you need to account for occupancy losses because
got
the
it,
owner gets paid irrespective of whether the property is occupied or
got it.
not. And this was not something that we did. This is not something that we ever wanted to do.
Mhm.
But coming back to the primary reason why we sort of got away from the services model was, I think, 4 years into the business, we realized that whether we had enabled every stakeholder with a piece of technology, right? So tenants could raise tickets to the tenant app. Owners could approve, your owners could approve vendor quotations through their app, and property managers could sort of manage this entire ecosystem by handling ticketing. They could handle rent collection, so on and so forth. But irrespective of that, that period between 2014 and 2018 wasn't really conducive for everyone purely using a platform without human interaction. And Cozy Homes, well, ended up being a punching bag. And while we wanted to sort of build this business as Uber, where in different cities we had, 3 or 4 managers from Cozy Homes, but the ecosystem built out through service partners. What actually happened was when you looked around our office, we had about 10 to 15 people in the technology front, engineers and product managers, and about 50 people in the services front, blue collar, and so on and so forth. And
Got it,
that's when we decided, this is not really how we want to scale this business.
got it.
The byproduct of this was we had built out such a vast technology piece for ourselves that
Mhm.
we realized that at that moment there were 800,000 property management companies in the world that were managing more than 500 to 1,000 units, and all of them were using fragmented pieces of technology.
Hmm.
This is in the mid to late portion of 2019.
How, how
And
how how many property managers did you say?
property management companies, not just
Companies?
property
Yeah,
management,
property management companies. How many?
800,000.
800,000.
Yes.
Okay. And this is all across the world, or
All across the world.
all across the world, and an average is 500 to 1,000 units that they
A
manage.
minimum of 500. Obviously, your Brookfields and
The big
you know
ones, yeah, obviously are the
large
but the
asset
average.
groups were not what we were looking at, but we're looking at say individual property managers, agents, brokers who had something like something that they call an established company with at least one or more employees under them to sort of manage their portfolio.
Got it.
So
So
when we
you were talking about the byproduct. So you
yeah,
said, yeah.
so when we the larger picture is to sort of get everyone to use our technology piece and not really do the services ourselves. That's when we split the organization into two. The technology IP was completely held by the HouseMonk, and Cozy Homes was only a services business. And one of the most fortunate things that happened to us was we managed to sell Cozy Homes 3 months before the pandemic hit India.
Wow.
Correct. So occupancies went down from about 85% to about 40-50%. But we just got lucky, in my opinion. We did help them get back to about 90% now.
Correct.
But all said and done, the pandemic had a huge impact on what happened with respect to the sale of our services business, what happened with respect to scaling our technology business, primarily because our entire pitch to property management companies was to manage their properties using technology and staying remote, especially places say like UK where your property managers come in even for the smallest of things to sort of address tickets that are written down in the register. We realized that a product would help them manage their properties sitting in the comfort of their homes and staying away from tenants who are not really comfortable speaking to people in person. And that helped us scale to a large extent in the latter part of 2021. And we're at about 100 customers now in about 15 countries, just doing what we do.
Got it. What was the status quo for these property management companies that you are targeting? What were they using before you pitched your product to them?
So,
Was it fragmented?
uh,
Lots of tools, fragmented tools?
lots
Uh,
of tools, right? So CRM comes from Salesforce. Ticketing primarily comes from say, Freshworks or so, or even another product of Salesforce or Zoho. Accounting is QuickBooks or Zero.
mhm.
Um, you have contract management through different tools, inspection tools. You have Facilio that takes care of facility management and so on and so forth. So the idea was to bring about one tool that will help them uh, encompass and envision whatever needs to be done as a company. What we used to tell them was everyone in your organization, and that's exactly what we tell everyone. Everyone in your organization walks into the office every day, logs into the HouseMonk system, leaves the office every day by logging out of the HouseMonk system. And everything that anyone in your organization needs to do, irrespective of department or function, um, does their job on the HouseMonk.
Got it. Um, and the thing is, one of the fascinating things about you is you are in multiple countries. So, was the vision always to launch in multiple countries at a time, or you wanted to capture one region after another? Could you also tell about your strategy on, okay, maybe because you're from India, you're registered in Singapore, maybe you wanted to capture India and Singapore first, get market saturation there, and then move to the other parts, or was it, let's spread ourselves thin across other countries and grow simultaneously? What was your strategy there?
Great. So when you talk about PropTech and the market size across the globe, right? 50% of the market resides in the US, right? So either you capture the US market or you'll have to spread yourself thin, at least across 2 or 3 regions. Now, given that our strength was in managing properties in India initially, and given that we have an accounts module which is very tailor-made to different countries right now, but
Hmm,
was tailor-made to India initially.
exactly.
Uh, we started off with India. Immediately, we saw a lot of interest in Singapore, primarily because the, the products available in the US, such as RealPage, Buildium, Yardi, Rent Manager, have their core focus on the US market, primarily, like I said, because 50% of the market is homogeneous in the US,
Right.
and it's easier for them to sort of land and expand within multiple large asset management companies and property management companies there. And that's where we got a lot of interest there. Now, given that we were in the multifamily property management space with respect to services, and we had a few buildings under the co-living space, right?
Right.
By the time we exited Cozy Home, everyone in the co-living space sort of knew us as well. I wouldn't call ourselves as market leaders because we weren't market leaders, but we were thought leaders in the co-living space because at that moment we were the only company, at least in India and Singapore, that hadn't raised a single penny from external investors and were still managing to successfully run a co-living business with 90-95% occupancy in multiple geographies. So most of our competitors in the services business primarily became our initial customers.
Got it.
And that's how we started in India. We started off as an all encompassing product for the co living space. And then we started building specific tools and products that will cater to multiple departments or multiple functions within the entire property management space. Right? Today, the HouseMonk isn't the only product. Actually, the parent company is called Monk Tech Labs. The HouseMonk is what we started with. We have the Office Monk, which is for the co-working and managed office spaces. We have Monk Circles, which is a community app which can cater to large tech parks or retail spaces or multi-asset facilities. So these are a whole bunch of products that now integrate with existing systems that people use, even with respect to enterprise customers. For example, we're in talks with customers, we're in talks with people like Umar in Dubai, which is one of the largest real estate firms there, to sort of give them this community app that will work in tandem with their existing systems. And also, with respect to Singapore, we are the largest two co-living companies and hospitality companies, which is Elichin, Kolivu, and Cove.
Okay.
And these are guys who manage 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 units across Southeast Asia.
But by the way, so whether it is co-living, whether it is student housing, does your product change based on what kind of a sector it is, or it is a standard application that can be applied to any of the use cases here?
So I think that is where our product managers and our engineering prowess actually came into play. So the underlying database of how you manage your properties and what information you are storing from a back-end perspective remains the same.
Mm,
Now, from a product perspective, depending on what you are selecting, the front end of the product automatically adapts and caters to that sort of a customer or that customer segment. For example, when it comes to co-working, your units are called seats. When it
mm,
comes to co-living, your units are beds or rooms.
got
When
it.
it comes to student housing, it could be called a hostel, right, instead of a property.
Got it.
But a lot of it is around nomenclature changes, billing changes,
Got it.
and sort of contract changes, right? So these three portions are what change drastically. But with respect to ticketing or facility management or with respect to accounting, not too many changes across sub-verticals within the property management space. So that is how we started building our product. Of course, now we're sort of splitting it into different things. Currently, we have some marquee products. We are the only hybrid rental management product in Asia, Europe, and um, the Far East as well. So
So,
by hybrid, yeah, please go ahead.
um, so finish your thought on the hybrid, and then yeah,
This is the only product that will automatically cater to short term, long term, and super long term. What I mean by super long term is for student housing, which is annual booking.
got
What I mean by long term is a month and above, and what I mean by short term is daily, weekly, or 20 days or whatever, anything under a month. Okay. So
nice.
if you have a mixed use asset class, which is typically what is happening post pandemic for most co living companies and most hospitality players, um, this is the only product that you can potentially sign up with if you want to use one instead of two products.
Got it. Um, since there are already existing players in the market, and this is a business question. Usually, how do you compete with your existing players? Is it because first of all, is there a stickiness? I'm sure there is a stickiness for a customer if they buy this solution. They would, once it's integrated into their own CRMs and ERPs, it becomes difficult for them to let go to a competitor. You have to be at least 10 times or 20 times better, and then maybe also better in showing real numbers on how what the ROI is going to be, right? So how do you compete in such a highly competitive space? Like, what is your value proposition that you offer to them?
So there are two types of customers that I'll talk about. Right? So there are your mid-market customers who are using the entire suite of products, right? Or at least a portion of the entire suite of products. So we have what we call ourselves is the Shopify of the rental real estate ecosystem. Say you're
Mm,
a property manager managing 500 units, right? You
mm,
come to the HouseMonk. You you sign up for what we call our booking portal. So your website is ready, automatically plug in your booking portal. Whatever you enter in the my data space, which is what we call our contract management and your property management database that you set up, right?
right.
Whatever you enter there automatically gets listed here. We have something called a channel manager, which basically posts on OTAs and search and discovery platform. And we have something called the community management app, which is the Monk Circle app, right?
Got
Now, once you're using all of this, or at least a portion of all of this,
it. Right.
it becomes very difficult for people to move out. And I think the only thing that has worked for us, I wouldn't say the only thing, but the primary thing that works for us is we're an extremely adaptive and extremely quick team. So typically, if you go to an Oracle or an SAP and you ask for a feature enhancement or a request, we've done this in the past when we were trying to use their systems. And the responses that you get are 2 quarters away, 3 quarters away, whereas for us it's 2 weeks away.
Got it. Got it.
And that has worked for us. We're extremely adaptive, primarily because we're in multiple geographies.
Right.
And also, what we realized was legacy products that were built in the past
Right.
are very difficult to integrate. By the time you run through the entire process of integration, by the
Got it.
time you go through acceptance criteria, and by the
Right.
time you go live, it becomes, I mean, you end up losing a quarter. right? It's
Got
a
it.
very,
So
but what we do offer is
nimbleness.
build our core ecosystem, and we'll integrate to at least 100 products, and we're at about 50 to 60 integrations.
Got it. So integrations is the key. Speed and nimbleness is the key. I also stopped you while you're talking about your geographical strategy. You said that you got a lot of good inputs from Singapore and India. So what happened after that? What about other countries?
Okay, so to give you a little bit of history around why the GCC region, um,
GCC,
Gulf, the
Gulf
Gulf,
region.
or the Middle East and North African region, right? So the reason why we picked that initially was because entry into that market was a little easy, primarily because my background is from there. I was born and brought up in Dubai,
Ah, nice.
and we were in the real estate and infrastructure space, but we were in the infrastructure space and the oil and gas space, right? So anything around that. But a lot of the larger players like Al Ghurair, ETA, Al Wasl, Emaar, and so on and so forth were also dabbling in the energy space and in this space. So access to customers there were a little easier. And also, given that this was the bread and butter for our business for decades, we sort of knew the gaps there and what we needed to do to sort of fill that up. That's how it started there. The market is growing very quickly there post pandemic again. And the towards um, shift towards technology and the implementation of tools that will enable them to have some level of intelligence built into their ecosystem, primarily to optimize what they've done in the past and plan ahead for the future. Given that oil and gas is not the future over there, they have multiple energy sources and multiple infrastructure plans and multiple plans around tourism and so on and so forth. Is actually helping us grow very quickly in that space.
Got it. So that is Gulf, and then do you also have presence in Europe?
We have presence in Europe. We have presence in South America as well. See, South America was primarily around similar market demographics. The number of units managed are very similar to mid-level property managers in India, and the rent is very similar, right?
Got it.
So a lot of them understood that if this works for the Indian ecosystem, it works for Brazil or it works for Argentina, right?
And how's
And yeah,
yeah, sorry sorry.
Balaji,
It's yeah.
okay, so Europe is something that worked for us as well, primarily because the mid-level property managers there want to use one system. Europe is not a country where they would pick one product and then say, we want integrated products, at least at a mid-level property management
Mm.
segment. And also we do focus to, any SaaS company in that sense focuses on GTM into Europe through partnerships, and we have a few good partners that help us distribute our product.
Got it. Um, and how long has HouseMonk been now in business?
We got our first customer in early 2020. So it's
That's mighty impressive, because usually people would be in one region, try to consolidate that market, and then expand. I'm just This is a plain business question, right? So what you feel is to expand your sales team and grow simultaneously in multiple countries. Has there been challenges? Has this been a good bet for you? If other entrepreneurs are listening to this, would you recommend doing this? Because I've seen so many players who consolidated one market, they focus there, and then they expand. So what has been that the strategy behind?
so for us, given that this was a pandemic baby, we had to. The culture of buying products during the pandemic was purely online. It didn't
Hmm.
really make a difference to us. What we did was we focused on one very niche vertical, which was co-living. Now,
Co-living. Okay. Co-living was your focus, is it?
co-living was focused during pandemic,
I see.
and we expanded from there. At
Hmm.
that point, we were geography agnostic.
Hmm.
Now we're doing multiple verticals, but in certain geographies. So, what I would talk to other entrepreneurs about is, given that we are a vertical SaaS company, your
Hmm.
sum total of your customer base is going to remain the same and is growing only at maybe 10-20% annually. Right?
Hmm.
At
Hmm.
some point, you're retargeting these customers with innovative products. And at some point, you're trying to target these customers in certain geographies where you build product depth, right? So you've gone into depth, you've built something that's innovative, and you've really customized for that particular geography. But
Right.
to start off with and to experiment with, if you've identified a niche where you know you have some expertise, for us it was expertise in co-living. That's how it started. So
Mm.
as experts in co-living, we know what products you need to use to grow your business was our pitch to most of our customers across the world.
Why co-living though? Maybe those of us who do not know much about this space, why is co-living so popular and opportunistic in the days to come as well?
All right. So there are three.
Maybe the trends you can talk about why co-living has become so popular.
So student housing has always been large in the European market and in the Indian market. It's not structured in the Indian market or the Southeast Asian market, but very large in the European market. But co-living as such brings about three aspects or three facets that you need to look at. One is yield in purpose-built properties around co-living is much higher, right?
Mm. Mm.
Whereas, so in places like India, you make 2.5 to 4% in rental yield. In
Right.
UK and other parts of Europe, you make 6%. When I'm talking about multifamily assets,
Mm.
right? In co-living, you end up making the top line is at about 10 to 12%, and post your management fees and whatnot, the owner ends up making 8 to 9%. Right?
Wow.
So there is a direct 50% increase in the yield, 40 to 50% increase in the yield that an owner ends up making, as long as it's a custom built property for co.
Mm.
Why they're able to make higher yields is because the shift towards community has become very large. Right? No one wants to stay by themselves within a property as long as they get certain space that they need, which is custom suited for their use case and does not have large lock-in periods. Right?
Mm.
If you're looking
Okay.
at rental contracts across Asia, these are all 11-month contracts, 24-month contracts. But in
Mm.
co-living, your contracts are typically 2 to 3 months, right, on average, and goes down to about a month. Now, one, you get the flexibility. Second, you get the community. Third, you get spaces which are not really things that customers want to pay for anymore. For example, the entertainment area in the co-living space,
Mm.
right? Something that you would probably use once a week,
Mm.
again, to socialize with the people in the same co-living space. Otherwise, you're going to go out to meet your colleagues or whatever it is.
Mm.
And you do not want to be paying for that space when it comes to monthly rent. Another trend that has come about during the pandemic is, of course, remote working. And the fact that people have the option to stay in different locations at different points in time
Right.
has really changed the way that people have started looking at rental accommodation. There
Got it.
is no one between the age of, I would say, 22 to 25 today, I can think of in India who should be thinking of renting a property for 5 or 7 years.
Got it.
And
Got
that's
it.
just not the trend that I see. So this market has been growing. It was growing at about 20% CAGR pre-pandemic, and it has now accelerated to about 32%.
Got it. And there is a lot of investor interest also in this space, right? So who
Uh,
are investing in building co-living, custom built co-living properties.
yeah, so there are propcos and opcos, and I think
Opcos
yesterday we
and opcos.
yeah, so we call them propcos. Propcos are companies that build their own asset, own the asset, and manage the asset.
Got it.
Propcos are companies that come in and manage the asset and find tenants in these and do whatnot, which was what co-living was before, but the trend is now moving towards propcos.
Got
There
it.
is a lot of consolidation where propcos are buying out opcos.
Got it.
We just launched our global co-living report 2022 yesterday,
I just
and
I received it last night.
and we talk a lot about this. We talk about mergers and acquisitions, what happened during the pandemic, what was
Mm.
the shift in focus, and what are the differences between the propcos and opcos in different parts of the world.
Nice. So this report would be targeted to mostly property management or investors. What about investors as a target audience for you? Like because the investors also do. So they usually acquire and then manage and then sell, right? So during the manage phase, also do they use your products or no?
Typically, if it is a large investor, see, we don't do bottom of the pyramid. If
Bottom,
someone is
bottom of the
bottom of the pyramid in terms of business, right?
got it.
So
Mhm.
if someone has 20 units that they're managing themselves as an individual landlord,
Mhm.
they really don't need a complex product such as ours. We clearly tell them that just use a Zoho or just use a Freshworks. It's fine.
Got it.
You
Yeah.
might find one piece of the product that's interesting for you, but you don't need a large product
Got it.
or a complex product that sort of deals with everything and automates your invoicing and rent collection and so on and so
Got it.
forth.
Got it.
But for the large asset managers, yes, there are different products that they have been using over years, and they have 3 or 5 year, 10 year contracts with uh, Oracle and SAP and Salesforce and so on and so forth. But
Right.
there are different modules within our product that now plug into their products. Say to get insights around community, say to
Right.
get insights around rental yield in different places and so on.
Right. Got it. Yeah. I mean, so I completely understand, because bottom of the pyramid you would not get the margins, and they would it's not relevant as well. But
Yeah.
as you grow up, the bigger ones are more sustainable.
Absolutely.
And usually, your platform, how, like, what price points are they being offered when you talk about larger customers? So is this subscription? Are they in a subscription licensing models, or what kind of price points do you offer?
Typically, if you've taken the community product, the listings page, and the management product, right, which we call, the growth products, the
Mhm.
community products is called the circle set of products, and we have the operation set of products. Right? If you take all of it together, the maximum anyone would end up paying is maybe seven to $8 per unit per month,
Right.
right? But we do sell these separately as well, and depending on the size of the customer and depending on what is the exact need of that customer at that moment, they can always pick and choose.
Got it. Let's talk about market maturity. You talked that US is 50% of property management companies, right? So you talked about the numbers there. How how is the rest of the world growing in terms of property management as a concept? Because I feel India is still new in property management. Am I right, or is
Absolutely. So actually, the core reason why we've decided to focus on the Indian market, the Singapore and certain parts of Singapore, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Malaysia, right, as a market in Southeast Asia, and Dubai, Qatar, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia as the Middle East and North African markets for us right now, is because the growth trajectory of organized property management is at a much higher pace than the growth trajectory in the US, because that is already a mature market.
saturated? Yeah, got it.
That's a, saturated in terms of PropTech and mature market in terms of how people absorb and consume services with respect to property management.
Got it.
In India and say in developing countries, I would say that initially everyone thinks of self management.
Hmm.
After that, they think of organized property management companies. And within that space, there are very few who really use technology to scale their business.
So the concept of NOI, right? Net. What's the full form of NOI? Just as yield is for rentals, NOI is net operating income, right?
Yeah, and the top rate. Oh, you're talking about the same. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So when they look at numbers,
yeah.
by self-managing versus giving it to professional property managers, that's where they are more inclined, which is culturally not has been in India. So you see
Ab-
that trend changing, and you see that move happening more and more in Indian subcontinent, right?
Absolutely. Also, we talk about this a lot. The cost of the cost of borrowing in India is anywhere between 7 and 9% today, right? If you're planning to purchase a property, your rental yield is anywhere between 2.5 and 4%,
Right.
right? You're already at a negative
Right.
when it comes to your property, unless the appreciation of your property far surpasses, I would say, 10% or 12% annually, because your
Right.
inflation is also very high at the
Right.
moment.
Right.
It doesn't really make sense to go for the regular rental, um, regular assets as an investment for rental.
Right.
A lot of the purchases that happen in India are more sentiment buys or more comfort buys, where you purchase the property so that you get to customize it in a certain way for yourself. And I still think that's going to be a huge market, and the sale market is not going to go down because of that. But I think that investing in managed properties where you just put in the money as an investment, and you believe that rental real estate is something that suits you, you should go for something like a co-living or a co-working or REITs or whatever it is that are um, new age assets that give you high yield.
Got it. So let's try to understand a bit about property management space in India. What kind of services does a standard property manager offer that you also enable them to offer this? So is it
Oh,
like
great
get
point.
yeah, maybe you can just list out what are the standard services of a property manager that you serve.
I'm going to talk about services. I'm going to leave out the furnishing bit of things because this varies across different types of property management companies.
Right.
Some management companies put in the furniture themselves. Some of them get the owners to put in the furniture, but that's not a service per se. So I'm not really going to talk about that.
Got it.
But from finding a tenant, making sure contracts are in place, making sure rent is collected and debited to the owner on the same day every month, from managing plumbing, electrical, carpentry, from managing the infrastructure in case there is something wrong with the facility as a whole, which is due to wear and tear, in which case the owner bears the cost, but the service is provided by the property manager, from painting and cleaning once the tenant moves out to finding the next tenant and making sure all of this is documented in one place are all the functions of a property manager today. Of course, addressing grievances during the stay. There might be community-related issues. There might be uh, small tickets that are raised on a daily basis in terms of appliances not working, but everything falls on the property manager. Typically, when we used to run the property management business, this is what we used to tell owners in this space. Hand over your property to us, and in 7 years, we'll hand it over back to you in the same state. You don't have
Hmm.
to worry about anything. On the 7th of every month, you receive the rent. So that's typically what any good property management company should be telling their
And how do property managers companies work? Like do they go and do a transaction or sell this to an entire apartment or a complex, or do they go to individual owners so that it's a scattered portfolio instead of societies?
owners. Okay, so this vastly varies from geography to geography,
Hmm.
right? And this vastly varies on the type of property management companies that each of them classify themselves into. Okay? So when I'm talking about classification, if you're calling yourself a student housing company, they have to take a consolidated asset, which is one big building, and make sure that the asset is close to the educational facility that the students have. Right?
Got it.
If you're a co-living company, of course, again, consolidation of assets happen. If you're a multifamily property management company, they will probably have 5 apartments or units within one block of one building and then 5 in the next block and so on and so forth.
Got
If
it.
you call yourself an agency that does both brokerage and property management, this could be spread across multiple regions. And depending on the size of the and depending on whether they're outsourcing their maintenance services, again, they look at consolidation over time. They start owning the maintenance services and trying to capitalize from
Got it. You also mentioned property management helps in getting tenants. So
there.
does your application help with that? Because tenants
That is
getting
the
is,
product.
is is beyond your platform's capabilities, no?
No, so that is exactly why we've built out our channel manager, which basically posts on multiple portals and OTAs,
Ah,
so on and
nice.
so forth. And that is the portion that we help with. We also have CRM integration, so they have their leads coming in from different places and so on and so forth. And lead management happens through multiple CRMs. CRM is not a space that we focus on. We integrate with existing CRM.
Got it. I'm also looking at your target audience. So if you are approaching a customer, your target audience would be somebody who is able to, with the help of your software, would be able to manage what is the extent, how big a property manager can go with the help of your technology.
Our largest company, who we are working with and will be working with as well for the long run, I think has about 28,000 property.
Wow.
So that is the extent to which you can go to. You can slice and dice how you use our product at a property level, at a unit level, at a geography level, at a sub-geography level, at an area level,
Right.
and our team always helps you set this up, right? So whether it takes a day or a week to set it up, once you set it up, you can manage your properties across multiple parts of the
Got
year. And that is one more capability that I think is very unique to our product, where one account can handle properties across different countries. For example, again, I'll come back to one of our large customers who has properties in both Singapore and Indonesia. Our customer Religion, who has Kolivu as a co-living company, they have their own service apartments, they have their own hospitality units, which is hotel units, are spread across 4 countries in Southeast Asia. But one product and one ecosystem.
got it.
Um, this also, see, one of the primary use cases is to manage rent collection and invoicing and accounting, right?
Mm,
And this gets used on a monthly basis by 100% of their tenants as well.
mm,
Because if you start collecting rent offline and online,
right.
getting this accrued accounting in place becomes a nightmare.
Mm,
Now, our product takes care of this, where we've already integrated with more than 28 payment gateways across the globe.
right.
So, irrespective of which country anyone is paying from, irrespective of which currency they're paying through, all of it gets accounted into our system as one big summarized accounting ecosystem.
Good. So the standard property management company, what would be the ideal customer for them? Would it be individual house owners, or you're still looking at institutional house owners who have like 4 or 5 properties?
No,
Because
no.
yeah, good.
For most of the larger asset management companies, so look again, enterprise is asset management and retail, because now I have retail, co-working, managed office spaces, so on and so forth, right? So
Right.
for the asset manager level, they look at large developers who want to rent it out through REITs for commercial and
Mm,
have large or they have large consolidated inventory in one particular space, where they have 25% that they rent out and sell 75% of the inventory. Say, for
got
example, Embassy as a company has olive oil, right? And say that they have about 2,000 units in one particular location. Maybe 500 units are directly rented out to Embassy or Olive, and the rest of it is probably sold to end customers. Um, Typically, large asset management companies focus on this. Your mid-level property managers look at one particular asset where maybe there are 50, 60, 70 units, okay, that they can consolidate and manage. 10 of those will make up a portfolio of 500. Okay.
right.
Your lower end of the spectrum is not something that we focus on. But if you look at our community product right now, which I said, so our community product, Mount Circles, right now is basically LinkedIn meets events meets Bumble meets, you know, meets asset management, right? At the end of the day. So we're trying to build communities, engaged communities for a lot of our customers. And if you look at the asset classes that are being managed through this, these are large mixed use asset classes where 3 buildings are offices, 2 buildings are residential units, one is a mall, and 4 of it is parking units, right?
Right.
And all of this with respect to common facility booking, with respect to hosting events and spaces available within this ecosystem of a township, in a sense,
Got it.
all happen through one app, right? So at the end of the day, different products cater to multiple asset classes, but like I said, nothing for the lower end of the spectrum. Like I said, if you're a landlord managing 3 units in India right now, sitting out of Germany, that you're probably not our ideal customer.
I get that. So it's in your interest also to educate this sector of property management companies,
Of course,
because I mean
of
it's
course.
still not ripe, right? If somebody wants to get into property management, okay, and wants to start this business, would you recommend him to go and talk to developers and start pitching them to manage their cluster of properties? Because as you mentioned that they usually have a certain percentage of their units that is given to REITs. Would that be a more wise decision than going to individual house owners and trying to find customers?
So again, it depends primarily on geography, right? Now, given that the Asian market is still new to this, and the Asian market is a services-oriented market, a lot of the large developers already have a property management division within their portfolio of companies.
Ah, I see.
Approaching them might not be the right angle to this. What typically property management companies focus on is their expertise on knowledge with respect to the right rental amount and the right customer profile for small sub geographies, right? Or I call them micro geographies. Now,
Mm.
say for example, you take up Orchard Road in Singapore, right? Or you take up Indranagar in Bangalore, right? Or you take up Bandra in Mumbai, or you take up JBR in Dubai. These are areas where there are focused property management companies which will tell you what is the rent that you have to really list your property at, depending on how quickly you want to get a customer for the same. And well, typically their knowledge comes from years of experience, and there are products that sort of do multivariate analysis to tell you what really has to happen in that
AVMs.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. But most property managers focus on that key strength of theirs, where they have expertise around the same thing. A
Got
lot of companies expand primarily through reference. Um, Given that they're very focused on one particular area, they're accessible to their
Excellent. Great. I think those were some of the meteor ones. Maybe you could also say where the future is going to be in this space. Um, like where do you see the future innovation? You mentioned about. I'm yet to read your report from co-living, but where do you see the innovation is with respect to property management sector?
Okay, so there are two very, very specific places where we see innovation growing at a trajectory that will be exponential and not linear. Right? One is around integrating management, search and discovery, and occupancy.
Mm,
Right? This happens a lot in hospitality, where you have companies like Price Labs and you have companies like Star and so on and so forth that take care of channel management for OTAs, right? Online travel agencies such as
mm,
Booking.com, Airbnb, so on and so forth. With respect to the long-term rental management space, there are property portals, there are agencies, and then there are property managers.
mm,
Absolutely no integration between all of this. This is
mm,
a large space that can be capitalized on.
mm,
There is a lot of transaction revenue to be made through this. And there is a lot of integration that can potentially happen here and a lot of intelligence that can be built into this with respect to what should rental rates be at certain places. So, to be very honest, two to three companies in the US, which are rental property management companies, dictate rental prices. RealPage, William, Yardi, and another couple of products dictate rental rates in certain geographies within the US market, such as
mm.
Seattle, New York. And you have actually seen an increase of about 18% in rental rates over a period of 2 to 3 years, primarily because the products dictate the pricing for these listings, right?
I'm aware of that. Yeah.
Yes. And this is something that ideally should happen across the world, right? So you should have enough and more data that's
It,
consolidated into one ecosystem from a management perspective, from a search and discovery perspective, from a pricing perspective, from a yield perspective.
mm,
And that is the growth suite of products that we have. I mean, that we've built out as a unique proposition for our customers. And I think there's a lot of space for multiple products to integrate with our product and for multiple products to operate by themselves in this space. The second part of the post-pandemic world that we're seeing is the community aspect of things that I keep talking about.
mm,
Today, 92% of I mean, 92% of digitally savvy people have some form of association to an online community. It could
mm,
be someone selling tea in India, but will be part of a WhatsApp group. It
mm,
will be someone. It could be someone who's the CEO of a large asset management company or the CEO of a large SaaS company who's part of a community that's for founders. It
right.
could be someone in the investment space. Right?
Right.
Consolidating geography, community, similar interests. and monetizing from the same has not been done
Hmm. Okay.
yet. And
Yeah.
that, I think, is something that can happen with only with technology. Primarily because today, if you want to say host an event somewhere, first
Hmm.
you will call someone and find out how many people are interested. So that's another portion. Then you'll
Right.
have to find the right space to host a event. Then you need to find the right company to do this and so on.
Right.
Finding
Right.
all of this and using some form of algorithm, so which we've built, so to sort of pre-create groups and so on and so forth based on your interests, is something that is happening. Again, it's fragmented. You have five, six products that do this. Bringing
Right.
all of it into one space is where we see huge opportunity, and that's the reason why we have monk circles and the birth of monk circles again. So
Excellent. I'm being mindful of the time here. I would just like to end with one question, and primarily anybody who is listening to this podcast, since you talked about the massive opportunity for property management
yeah,
companies in India, if somebody were to really get inspired by this conversation and say, okay, I would like to explore this space. What do you think is the kind of revenues that a standard property management company who is managing say 100 units, okay, let's start with 100,
right.
would generate in a year, using your tools, HouseMonk? Could you
Wonderful.
give somebody who has never been to property management space but now is willing to be an entrepreneur and start his own business, how would you say, what are the numbers like?
There are a lot of influencers in the vacation rental space who talk about this, but I'll talk about long-term property, right?
There are influences in India, you mean?
Across the globe in the vacation rental space, right? Short-term property management, lease and put it on Airbnb and manage your properties on a daily rental basis. Available
Ah.
across the globe on multiple social media platforms who talk about doing nothing but sitting on the phone for 5 hours a day and making millions of dollars a month. Right?
Mm.
I'm not talking about a month. But anyway, I'll give you some numbers around long-term property. Right? Take Singapore, for example. A unit in a co-living space would essentially be rented out for anywhere between 2,000 to 3,000 in a key location, right?
Right.
Dollars,
Yeah.
right? Now, given that 100 units are available in that space, 2,000 into 100 is about $200,000,
Right.
right? And this is the gross transaction value, right? This is the rent that's flowing through your system.
Right.
Assume you can make about 8% of the rent, which is the bare minimum, right?
8%
Uh,
to 12% is what I have heard. 8 to 12% is
8%
the
to 12%. Exactly. So the bare minimum is 8%, or to make the math easier, you're 10%, right? So you would start off with $20,000 a month just by convincing probably three owners to hand over the property to you. Given that there are so many tools available in the market similar to ours, and given that we've integrated with service providers, we have marketplaces that help you find the right vendors to manage this. You are not going to do anything but sit in a chair like you and me right now and call a few owners to get there, right? So to get to $20,000 a month, that's pretty much all it takes, and that's how we started. It was me and my co-founder pretty much sitting at home calling owners and telling them, look, we can manage your property.
Mm. But are the owners willing to part away with 8% to 10% of their rentals?
Absolutely. I think I would pose that question to you, right? Assume you had about 10 properties,
Yeah.
in India or in Singapore or wherever it is, and you're currently situated in Germany. Would you like to speak to? So, look, I'll tell you what, right? The average conversion rate from lead to tenant,
Mm.
right? If I'm looking to get a property occupied, would
Mm.
be about 10 to 15%, right? And I'm taking this globally, so this number will vary in different geographies and different
Mm.
segments and so on and so forth. So you would need to speak to 100 people to get your 10 properties occupied.
Mm.
Post doing this, you'll have to deal with, say, again, knowing that, I mean, given that we have this data in our ticketing module, on average, a tenant raises at least one ticket a month. So
Mm.
that's 10 tickets, 10 vendors you're speaking to, and uh, and 10 rent collections that you have to deal with every month. This is a
Mm.
full time,
Got it.
right? So most most investors who invest in real estate as an asset for investment and do not buy it as a sentiment buy. End up giving it to property management companies because they understand the value.
Got it. Are you, as part of your business interest, are you also doing something towards educating this sector so that there are more property managers?
Absolutely. So we have a whole bunch of reports that come out. So global cooling report is something that was the most popular. We had about 1,400 odd people who actually requested us to come back with another report this time. And that's why this was out quickly. We skipped 1 year during the pandemic because we thought we'll consolidate 2 years of what happened across the pandemic and put it out in one report. With respect to property management and how you can use our property management tools, and not just ours and other tools as well, right, in the market. We do have blogs, we do have multiple webinars uh, that happen through industry experts. We are coming up with our own podcast specifically around property management,
Nice.
which which
Lovely.
goes live, I think, by the end of January, and that's a weekly podcast where we'll be interviewing the largest property management companies in the world, some of the people who are incumbents into the space, and also some of the people who have exited from the space, just to give an idea of how the entire ecosystem had been working and is growing.
Excellent. Where do you see yourself in the next year or so? Where do you think HouseMonk would be in the next 12 months to 24 months, 1 to 2 years?
Next 12 to 24 months, we're looking to, with respect to the number of customers and revenue, we should be at about 3 to 4x of where we are right now. Primarily because a lot of the groundwork that happened in the last 6 months. Right, this
Is,
is post.
is your revenue numbers public, or you want to keep it under wraps?
I would say for the next 6 months, we would like to keep it under wraps, primarily because we are in the middle of a equity conversion phase with and new investors and so on.
Nice, nice, excellent, Balaji. Thank you so much for sharing so much of wealth of information and knowledge. Not
Absolutely.
everybody, not everybody opens up, but that talks about your confidence and security that you know about this industry so much. And all the best for the future of HouseMonk as we build this community at PropTechBuzz. It helps to talk to so many thought leaders from so many different spaces so that eventually I could give back this help to you. Since you gave me your time, I could give back this help to you in some way or the other in the coming days. So with that, thanks,
Absolutely.
Balaji.
Absolutely wonderful talking to you, Ravi. It's great that there are a lot of people taking interest in PropTech because this term PropTech as an industry itself is growing a lot now than it
Correct.
was before. EdTech, FinTech, and the other portions of technology and social media and so on and so forth were the buzzwords a few quarters back. And now that PropTech is taking off, I think you're in the right space as well. So
Excellent, Balaji. Thank you so much.